made it!
Yay! We made it! We're doing it! Freeze frame. Hi, Ronald Ogden.
Hello, Morgan Peter Brown.
And hello, chat. Welcome to the Dungeon Cooldown. Happy Monday, August 16th. Where has this year gone? What year is it? Time is a flat circle. What is happening? But hi, everybody. Yes, this is the Dungeon Cooldown, your companion show, your sibling show, if you will, to the Dungeon Run on Wednesday nights. And this show brought to you for our wonderful Patreon patrons. And you can catch the VOD of it only on Patreon. So do that. But yay, Ron and I are here today to go over some questions, to talk about all the stuff from last week's episode 91, prep you for this week's new episode, and talk about other stuff.
Do we have some questions today too?
Boy, we got hit with some hard ones, and it's not a shock after last week's episode, to be honest.
Yeah.
Last week's episode had a lot of big conversations, a lot of big actions. If you haven't watched episode 91 yet, I'm gonna say hold off, because we kind of have to spoil like what happened right at the end, right? We sort of have to do that. But yes, hey, thanks,
so,
Gary.
Spoiler alert, if you've not watched the episode yet, pause this, come back after.
Correct.
And then we can.
I see those subs. Thank you, Gary McHenry, and Extinguish the Flame. Oof, never extinguish the flame, never. But yeah, I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. As Corbin played, there was an internet outage. Yes. We cut to black at a very dramatic time, and then we literally cut to black. We had 91 was a little bit of a chaotic show. I was late. I apologize again. I was stuck on set and couldn't get home in time. But
here's the thing. The only reason I'm upset at you is because it wasn't me who was late for being on set. That's the reason I'm upset at you.
I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did say this in the Discord already, that I'm sad that a certain sock puppet did not make an appearance to fill in for me again this time.
Sure.
I fully expected it, but it did not. Which is good to know. Thank you, Nikeba, for the sub. Oh my goodness, I think we got a hype train going. Yeah.
Oh, already.
Whoop,
hey.
whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
Did you do anything fun this weekend, buddy? It's still hot as heck here in Los Angeles.
It's super hot. This weekend I had my superhero D&D campaign, and they finished Act 1. So
that
it's
means
always
dark
good
things.
Dark things. So we're in like Act 1 of the third act. We're on like a trilogy, so it's a very long campaign.
Got it.
We've been playing it for a couple of years now.
Sure.
But it's always a good feeling as a DM when your players afterwards text you and they're like, it was so good, I didn't want it to end. And
that's
like,
awesome.
Okay. I did something right. Yay.
Yeah.
So that was my weekend.
One of my home games is a Curse of Strahd campaign that I'm DMing for some friends, and our schedules have just been nuts lately. And so we haven't been able to play in a while. And so I just started like texting them recaps because like Jeff did to us a few weeks ago, it's like, tell me what you're doing next, because I'm trying to prep right now. And you guys got about 4 roads in front of you.
Give me some insight. I just want to know.
Just give me
a couple of options.
Something. But even that became fun because they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that, or oh, I missed this, and so we all miss it so much and are having such a fun time. Yes, it's a blast. But yeah, so I mean, all right, episode 91, Judgment. Very, very dramatically named.
Yes.
Judgment, only one E in Judgment. I don't know if you know this. There was some discussion before that title. The first title had Judgement, and it's like, no, that middle E is not there. Sorry, that was a small
English, guys. No, it's good. It's
digression.
good to know those things.
Yes. Judgment. Grammar Judgment.
Grammar Judgment.
Boy, though, I think both Thorn and Olsvach, we were lamenting and complimenting Jeff just before we started, talking about how complex all this stuff is. And 2 cities in a row now where it feels like, boy, we could just stay here and just work on this place for decades. There's so much to do.
Yep.
And I do not envy you specifically because when there's just no way that Uggo is gonna feel 100% okay about leaving.
Of course. Right.
And because
At
there's
all, in any way, shape, or form. Yep.
right. And so, you know, you kicked over you walked in, you kicked over the table. You've hopefully given people some hope or some, you know, hopefully like that things are headed in a good direction, but also
I think he's also got some, you know, the one thing that I've learned in being Uggo in these situations, right?
Mhm.
Because Ron had no idea this was the situation in which it would be set up for him when we got here. So dealing a lot of like, I don't think Uggo ever thought about like what it would be to be king and like
Right.
what it means to actually make those decisions.
Right.
And in the and while Uggo's doing it, all I can think of is going back to the dwarven king that we met.
Rooser
And all of a sudden,
Forbrand.
Uggo's now going like, I understand him so much better now than I did before because of the situation he's in. And Uggo had no recollection or connection to that issue.
Yeah.
And so that's what's been going on in my head while it's happening is like, I'm just, you know, it's a matter of like, well, we know.
Yeah.
I try to keep it in character as much as possible. And, you know, going to that, laying stakes, making stakes have meaning and really playing the truth to the world.
Yeah.
Uggo I think he's suffering a little bit with imposter syndrome.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Ron suffers from that in a real way. So
Yep.
seems that's a good story element to incorporate.
Hey, Ron,
yeah.
you're doing great, Bert.
Thanks, man. I do appreciate that.
Of course.
I also recognize that that's the hard part is that you feel these things that you know logically make no sense. That's the hardest part of being a human to me, I think, is like feeling things that don't make any logical sense.
Right.
Which is most feelings. So
right. Well, yeah.
It's been
I think people have pointed out that Uggo has seemed sort of conflicted and confused, and you've said to Lily in some moments, you know, like I have no idea what I'm doing, but also, but then you'll be struck with these moments of such passion and severity that it's just sort of and that feels really true to me. It doesn't feel inaccurate, but also it's like. There's just, you're in the middle of a minefield. There's just so many things.
So many things that could fail. Yep.
And, well, and even...
I think we can even say that in our own world and reality, like what happens when there's a transition of military power,
right.
It looks like it's hard, man. You know, things can go bad very quickly if you don't take the proper precautions. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's just going to be about taking a breath, making people feel heard, and trying to, you know, stabilize, I guess. I think that's... this goes to a Patriot. We're already sort of answering it already, but Quinn Laux. Any thoughts on how Ron Ruggo will manage affairs back home since it feels like we're about to hit the road? Will James add Bogash to his book? We've definitely talked about that for sure. Yeah. Yes. Uggo in a dream spell to his council. Can James or Fahima scry? James or Fahima can't scry right now. James has the ability to, but he doesn't have... It requires a very hefty material component scrying. It's like 1,000 GP gold or silver mirror. But so I haven't used it. And a dream spell can only be done to one person, so not to a council. But maybe Uggo in a dream spell to Bogash. That's another way we could do that for sure. I think Uggo has Uggo has an idea about a thing. I don't know if he knows it'll work or not, but it's definitely a you know. And I think you said it right. And this is what Uggo realized, and he realized it because his family has given him this opportunity. It hasn't always been that his family listens to Uggo, and that's because Uggo approaches things in a way that is hard to listen to sometimes. But he has been listened to by his family in many times now. For sure.
And And I think that has made Uggo realize that that's what's been missing from Thorn orcs the most, is that they have not had a voice. They've lived in fascism, essentially, as authoritative fascism as you can get. That's what they were living under.
Sure.
And when you know, it might appear like, oh, no sickness, you know, yeah, but there's a lot of death, and it's by not your own will, and you don't have any choices. So I think in that situation, you know, was letting Uggo learn like, oh, that's a really powerful thing that I think maybe Thorn orcs haven't really realized, is that they've lost all of their aggression, but they've gained their freedom and their ability to choose. And that doesn't mean your rage is gone. Your rage is still there. You still have plenty of rage because things have gone wrong now. So use it.
Right. Well, and boy, this just speaks to how complicated things can get with D&D sometimes. Because I've even seen some questions of like, wait a minute, is Uggo setting up a theocracy with the Candle Queen? But I would push back on that, and I think you very clearly said to the crowd, I follow the Candle Queen, but I am not saying you need to. This is what I get from that, and this is what I hope to bring to all of you or to help you with.
And that really what that is just the Candle Queen has given Uggo an opportunity to explore what he wants, what he chooses to. I think that's what the Thorn orcs are missing, and that's what Uggo, in sort of idealistic way, is hoping that will also inspire them to do works of good.
Yeah, but it's so that ending with the crowd chanting "Rage Fist, Rage Fist, Rage Fist." It could mean so much, because they weren't chanting Uggo. And they weren't chanting Braca.
No.
They were chanting Rage Fist.
Rage Fist.
And it was like,
who are they talking about right now?
What does it mean? Jeffrey, you're too good with the ambiguity.
I think it's probably a mixture of both, depending on which orc you are.
Correct.
But that just comes to show you that they're paying attention. The orcs of Thorn are paying attention, and they're listening. And so seeing that, though, is ominous. I think gave Uggo a little bit of okay, at least they're paying attention to what I'm saying. They're listening. They're at least listening. Whether they follow through or take any account into what they're listening to, we'll see. But at least they're listening.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's the start of something good. Gorbin Played says, isn't a society that is so influenced by their leader and his practices mean the orc may feel compelled to follow Amanda? I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, I guess a little bit, but also I think that's built into the old school orc way, where that authoritarianism and if the authoritarian, and I don't think Uggo wants to be that leader, and so that's just something to be careful about. There's so much to be careful about.
Yeah. And if you listen to Braca's oration, he's trying to use Amanda as, look, he's trying to do the same thing I'm doing.
Right.
And that's where Uggo, after he says that, Uggo says very clearly, no, you made that true. I did not. I did not say you had to follow Amanda. All I said is you have to start treating orcs differently than we have been.
Yeah.
Because if we continue to go down this route, there won't be any orcs left.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's look, this, you know, it's a struggle. It is a struggle to try to help, but also not. People don't like being forced help forced upon them, and so it's going to continue to be a very.
There's some argument that maybe orcs of Thorn do, right? Because it's what they're so used to.
I guess. Yeah, but you know, if that's something to, being listened to is maybe not something that they're used to, and so, you know, it's all of this is to say is that all of this is going to take time, and I'm sure it will be a messy process, which is another thing to say, that like you could stay here for, if Uggo said next episode, guys, I don't think I can leave. I mean, it would feel true. It would. I wouldn't blame him. You know. Yeah. Yeesh. Yeah. It's a long thing. But to actually, I want to get to Dyson Capes' question to continue on this.
Sure.
Yeah, because so he brings up, if Braca would have said yes to Uggo after the jury vote, would Uggo have still carried out the verdict? So to make this clear, there was very clearly with our interactive audience poll, which was so awesome, and we hope to do even more interactivity of that kind or similar things when it comes up in the future. Where it was Braca was guilty. Uggo seemed to offer Braca some redemption.
Yep, he did.
And if Braca had said yes and you'd have believed it, what do you think Uggo would have done in that moment?
Probably similar to what they did on Game of Thrones, which is send him to the wall. Right? I think that's really what it is. It's like if you actually really believe in redemption and you want to be redeemed, then I'm going to give you a thing that will teach you a lesson that you cannot stand. And if you agree to that, then that means you're at least on the path of redemption. And in Uggo's code, he would have to allow that person that ability. So if with true redemption, Braca had said, I am sorry, I want to fix this, Uggo would have gone against every other orc in Thorn.
Yeah.
Because his code tells him that he must.
Yeah. 8 palms.
That would have been a hard thing. It would have been even, probably would have raised some ire in Thorn, but it's one of those where now Uggo's personal responsibility to his brother, to someone who's showing remorse and seeking forgiveness in a genuine way. I think Uggo would make that clear. This is the way that I think this should go. You still have all of your say. And if Bogosh says, this is it, then Uggo is going to wash his hands of it and go back. But Uggo would have made a case for Braca. Would have made a very forceful case for Braca. Yeah, I think speaking from James's perspective, I think that's kind of what James wanted. I honestly I wasn't sure. Are there sneaky tricks James could have pulled to try to save Braca at the last minute? Yeah, but I don't know. That James is not in that place right now. He's not in that place to make matters worse. And so there was a little bit of, there wasn't a lot that James could do. Well, and there's a lot, there's a conversation that Uggo and Civ had while you were gone that kind of sparks on this. And that was, Uggo's biggest concern about redemption was, well, what is the difference between Braca and James?
Right.
And Civ said a whole lot. James hasn't killed anyone. And Uggo says, absolutely. But the only difference then between James and Braca is time.
Could be. Yeah.
Right. And that's just Uggo's flawed vision and look of what's going on, right? He's more worried about, it just comes to show that in that moment, Uggo is more worried about James.
Yeah.
And the decisions with Braca will affect James more than he's really worried about himself or Braca.
As James
I think a lot of people might have missed that.
As James very clearly pointed out in the conversation that we had with Braca towards the end of episode 90, there is a lot, both being warlocks, there's a lot of things that make James and Braca similar. And this was a funny thing I had to not fight with, but had to kind of work to subvert early on, because I think the quintessential warlock idea is that I see you, Jessica Lynn Parsons, in chat. Hello, good Barry. I know who you are. No, but it's because people were like, well, you're a warlock. That means you have an undying thirst for power. And I was like,
your patron might.
Oh, for sure. But that's not necessarily James's, that's not necessarily James's vibe. And James definitely wanted something to be able to stand up for himself. And then it's all kind of been a downhill from there. It's all,
and I think warlocks get as much as any of my put down of warlocks is because I'm very jealous of that class. I love the warlock class. I think it's a very interesting take on that type of spell, like a spellcaster type. Yeah. It's always been fascinating to me. But when people get down on warlocks for like serving an extraplanar being, it's like, well, what is a cleric?
Right.
What is a paladin?
If anything, it's more honest because it's a more
Right.
just, you know,
Absolutely.
on
It's way more
face.
honest.
Yes.
It's like, no, I'm worshiping this thing I don't know. What are you doing? Oh, Amanda's the greatest. Yeah, well, yeah, but I know this thing.
Right.
I've met it. We've talked.
I think I even said it at one point because Uggo made that connection a couple times, saying, you know, like, I follow Amanda, you know, how do you feel this way about Shathragat? And I think I even said, I was like, I would equate your relationship with Amanda as more of kind of a friendship almost, or, you know,
a guidance, a mentor.
Whereas with a warlock, it's more like a business transaction. At least for James it is. And I gave you this, I get this. Now, so where James and Braca diverge is that power hungriness, which that was what both started them down that path. But James saw very early, yes, an abusive business transaction, says Corbin played, yes. But yeah, James saw very early that I think James had almost immediate guilt about it because of what happened in Turles before he left. And so it was James's eyes were not all the way. James was in a fair amount of denial for a long time, hoping he would get away with it. He was playing chicken, as I've said. But he's, you know, what drove Braca was grab this power, show your father, show Uggo how powerful he can be. And because he was already in such a position of power that you get drunk with it. And so that's where I think that gave James quite a lot of perspective with Braca, where it was just sort of like, all right, I see you. I think I see you more than you know. And
we've talked about like how, you know, when someone grows up in that environment and never leaves, like at what point do we realize that they don't have any control and that they're just a rabid animal who's been abused?
Yeah, right? I know. We talked about that.
That's kind of what Braca feels like to me, is that Braca was, I'm trying to do the best with the situation that I've been given, and the situation I've been given is this horrible thing.
It's so damn sad.
And that's really it. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, no, Braca is a tragedy. And I tried to hit on that a little bit again in that conversation where I just said it's such a waste. Because the promise of the two Rage Fist brothers, what you could have been, it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. I
yeah, it's a serious bummer.
Yeah, it's a serious bummer.
And, but also, you know, at what point does a person become? I don't want to say I personally, Morgan, do not believe in capital punishment. So I you know, even if someone is irredeemable, if that's, you know, it's hard to say that is what should have happened. It's still that was my thought at the end of the last episode, was like, what a waste.
Well, and you know, we even have some questions about that. Eight Palms Digital asks, Ron, during the trial of Braca, when his fate seemed certain, you appeared choked up.
Oh, sure.
What was going through your mind, considering that Uggo very deeply wanted to redeem his brother? Absolutely that. Yeah. And what's really making Uggo choke up in that moment is not just that his brother's here, but for him, there seems to be like an echo of warning for James, for him. And that's, I think, even, you know, I think Uggo has probably imagined killing his brother a lot throughout his life, considering what has happened.
Sure.
And lately, meeting his family, he's realized that maybe this isn't the way that it should be.
Right.
But that still takes a lot to remove that from someone when they've experienced it for so long.
100%.
And so for me, it was very much like, well, you know, Uggo's talking to Civ and is like, I'm really mostly worried about James here rather than Braca, because Braca very clearly seems like his opinion is not going to be changed. We had many conversations with him. Uggo started to have these conversations with him, and it quickly turned into an argument where we clearly wanted to move on because no one wanted to see that. Yeah. So, you know, that what I'm getting from that thematically is Braca has made his choice and he's sticking with it, which is not surprising to Uggo. Right, because that's the Rage Fists.
Right. Well, yes, and in the moment he did anyway. In the moment he had to, and that also felt true. If Jeff had if Jeff had, I don't know, if Jeff had shown, it would have felt, it wouldn't have felt real if Braca had suddenly changed his tune. It would have felt cheap.
Right.
And so,
not with the way that it was presented. Absolutely. If there was some other, like, if even when we first approached him, there had been some sort of remorse or even some indication that he didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
Then it's a whole different conversation and a whole different way of going.
Yeah.
But the way Jeff presented Braca every time was, I made this decision, fully aware of the decision I was making, and that's the decision I still think we should make.
Yeah. Fail Waffle, I see your question. I disagree. You say I still struggle to understand the point of the trial and showing them they have a voice if at the end of the day they didn't. He was going to give his own.
Okay.
No, I know, but also I want to say that, like, and it's fine to disagree, but also I think what Ron was saying earlier was it was the difference between guilty or not guilty, and then it was death or exile. Braca was never getting off scot-free.
No.
And maybe that wasn't made clear, but
it was made clear by Civ, and Uggo agreed. He can't get away with what he's done. It's just,
for sure,
is he going to die or is he going to get put somewhere?
Right, and there's obviously a danger of just putting him on ice somewhere. One doesn't know. There's no clear options what's going to happen there.
Right.
But yeah, I know it's. Ah, man, yeah, it's very tricky. But
well, especially, I think there's a bit of politicking that you're seeing here as well, right? Where Uggo is learning, oh, you know what? My friends are playing politics and it's effective. So maybe I need to do that as well, because look, Uggo's whole oath, and there's a very distinct difference between paladins in 5e than paladins previously. And Jeff made it very clear for me when he gave me the option as Amanda, which is paladins, they still revere a power or a god, but their power comes from the oath that they take, the decisions and the actions that they wish to move forward with. So in that way, if you read again any of the code that he has written, that's literally what it is. It's all about the actions that he thinks that the Amanda that want him to take. And so in that process, that's really, I think, what we're seeing here is my family. This is an oath of my family. Yeah. I've said that I'm going to listen to what they said. And when they all start politicking, that means I may not like that. Uggo may not like it because I'd rather just speak truth. This has to be what happens.
I think also I think what we're talking about also is a balance of, trying to figure out, yes, like as the leader, what to do as the leader, and the leader gives this trial, but also the emotional truth was that Uggo really didn't want to kill him.
Right. Yep.
And so, Fail Waffle, maybe you're right. Maybe it was a little bit of trying to give him the tiniest backdoor because he's your brother. Right. And you don't want to do this.
Yep. And so Uggo was looking for, okay, I'm setting up this rule. Yeah. Then how can I still be true to my own oath and also be true to the orcs of Thorn?
Right.
And this was the best way that Uggo could think about it.
And so, I think I think that feels emotionally true for sure. And it made all the sense in the world, I think.
Oh, trust me, I can tell you 100%. Uggo did not want to kill Braca. And you all know that because 100%. We've been talking about that for how long?
Right. If Uggo had said, I want to kill Braca, James probably would have killed Braca a long time ago.
Right. Exactly. Right. It would have been very easy to do whatever you needed to do. Absolutely.
Correct. In fact, Gregarian actually just asked a really good question. Now that Braca is dead, will James become human again or possibly seek out a new patron? Okay. First part of the question. I doubt it. I think the die is cast. I think James did not kill Braca when asked. I think that was, or when told to do so. I think that was the clear, this was your mission and you failed to do it. And so that is, I think, the issue. That I highly doubt that Shothrgot will just wave a magic wand and James will be back to normal. Jeff could surprise me. I don't know. But that I severely doubt it. I think they needed to I think the old ones needed to teach James a lesson for saying no to them. And I think that just because Brock is dead, that doesn't fix that. No. So I doubt it. Again, I'm seeing so many possibly seeking out a new patron. Was James going to get a new patron? I know D&D seems to offer these things, but what we have set up in this story is James does not know how to break the pact.
Right.
There is no world, and so there is no solution yet. Now, it's if that is going to happen, which it could, because things are not going well with Shathragat. The game of chicken has reached that point of impact, and so, but it's not just something. But James is looking for a way out, but there is no way out that has presented itself. And so,
and
actually,
I think
go ahead.
Dr. Sparks has a really good question
Cool.
about this. It seems like Uggo and James are different sides of the same coin.
Mm.
I can see that in a lot
Sure.
of ways.
Yeah.
It's kind of why we're blood brothers, I think. Uggo desperately wanted to give redemption to Braca, but was willing to take swift action to address the problem.
Mm.
James desperately wants to receive redemption, but thinks he can wait to address the issues. It's great character work. How do you both think the trial and execution of Braca will impact the relationship of Uggo and James?
I don't know if I necessarily agree that James thinks he can wait. I don't think it's that. I think James genuinely at this moment has no solution. And so
I have a solution. I got it from Elgantantu in chat there. You can Uggo will be your patron.
Perfect. Nailed it. Uggo versus Shathragat. Let's go. No, I mean, I think James does not know of a way out, and he's not going to keep playing this game of lying to his friends and possibly doing things for this power that feels like it's not headed in a good direction. So I think James he's always, maybe not always, but for a long time has seen this coming, and he's tried to push it off for as long as possible. I think now it's James knows his time is running short, and so he's gonna go down swinging. And so screw you, old ones. I'm gonna, do everything I can to help my friends and do as much good as I can. I don't trust you, and it's not worth turning turning myself against my friends. So nah, I'm done. I'm tired and I'm done. And that's honestly,
Well,
at the start of episode 90, that was where I was at, where I was just sort of like, no, I can see where this is going. And this is bad, especially because they listen. If I'm done, it's done hiding. It's done hiding from his friends, but it's also done hiding from the old ones, because they're like, all right, you're seeing it and hearing everything. You know what?
Fine.
Yeah, enough with you.
Well, and that's
I'd say something else, but we try to keep this family friendly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Or at least PG-13.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll remind Morgan, the player, the number of times Uggo has been like, "Hey, you need some help."
Yeah. Right. Which, okay. So, and that's because I've seen all the we're in some hot obelisk chat. So I know so what do I think I'm doing with the obelisks? I don't know. Here's, to be honest, I don't know if they're truly destroyed. It definitely seemed. I will say, people. I think one question from Patreon.
Apalms Digital.
Last, yes. Do you believe destroying the obelisks will remove the old ones' hold on the world, or do you think destroying them will free the old ones to do as they please? Hopefully not the latter. I think, and there's certainly more things to learn about them, but they seem to the obelisks seem to exist in places where the old ones have some power. Underneath the lighthouse in outside Boster in the Isle of Rum, and here in the Underfury. So that tells me that they're probably symbols of them in some way. And it may feel weak. It might feel, like just a throwing a stone into a lake. But it's like James is like, it's a manifestation of James's anger against the old ones, and I want to take them out. I want to destroy these, and I don't know if they're going to do anything. I don't think we have. Why wouldn't Sloppy Goats be mad at James then? He can't. Sloppy Goats can be mad at James for sure.
I think Sloppy Goats is mad at James.
100%. Hello.
Yeah. I don't think you look like that because he's happy it's happy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you look like that because it's like,
yeah.
Oh, he's doing so good.
Yes. No, it's not going great, guys. It's not going great at all. Yeah. There was another question about, it's specifically about, do I believe that the obelisks are truly destroyed? I don't know. It was something about the way Jeff described it after the fact it was unclear if they were destroyed. And we never after we toppled that lighthouse, we never truly went back to see, is that obelisk still there? I will say, though, if that didn't destroy it, maybe they can't be. And so if I don't have a better plan to destroy them, if that didn't do it.
Yeah, I think the Crow Demon, I've forgotten his name.
Lord of Crows.
Lord of Crows. If the Lord of Crows was around and then we defeated him and destroyed the obelisk, it seems to me, at least, that the obelisks are ways for other old ones to get to the world.
Maybe.
So it seems like it would be odd to me that that's not what's happening when you destroy them, because then why would the Lord of Crows have been there at all then? Now that's just Ron going like, what's the logic here?
Yep.
Maybe missing the story element that makes that slot in, right? But for right now, it's like Ron doesn't think that wouldn't make sense and be true to the story,
right,
as it's been presented currently. So that's just my.
But to go back to Dr. Sparks' question, I mean, James desperately wants to receive redemption, but thinks he can address the issues. Thinks he can wait to address the issues. I mean, yeah, James does want redemption, but doesn't honestly think he's going to get it at this point. And if I'm being honest, if we're going to go deep, he probably doesn't think he deserves it either. So James is just, hoping to tip the scales enough where, like, hey, when Judgment Day comes, I'm going to try and do as much good as I can.
Well, see, and that's what I think Uggo, just to speak from Uggo's viewpoint, is if it was James and Braca's situation, Uggo is pretty sure that James would have been like, no, I'm ready for redemption.
Oh,
like,
sure.
I can do that. I'd be ready for it. And I think that's the major difference that Uggo is seeing currently, is that James is still the point where he could redeem if he wanted to. If he wanted to, and there was a way to do it, he wants that still.
If Shathargot was right there as a big aboleth-sized whale and we could fight it, kill it, and free... 100%! 100% at this point, James would do that. But there's no... That's James's way weirdly is deeper underneath than everything than Braca was. I want to actually, I forget, I saw in chat there's a good further question about
Music
this.
Man, thanks for sub.
Whoop whoop. Cipher logic. That's right. James wouldn't forget that the old ones are against the Ashen Mage, though. That is true, and that is what the old ones and the Ashen Mage seem to be at odds with each other, which again goes to Jeff Kanata. Absolutely, chef's kiss storytelling. It is the only thing that has allowed us to get this far. Is that now, but that doesn't make it a good thing, not necessarily, because and this will lead us into something we got to talk about, which is the Fahima Diptheed conversation, which was so good. I rewatched it again this morning. I was like, oof, it's good. And the Ashen Mage is one of those great villains where when you hear what's truly driving their anger and their evil, whatever you want to call it, it's relatable. You're like, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, Uggo said that when he first learned it. Uggo was like, totally makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. And they are, it's a really, again, just really complicated, murky, gray area stuff where it's like, these are people that some might call terrorists, but when you go back to what happened to them, you're like, that's terrible. That is awful. And you could absolutely see where it came from. What if Jessica Lynn Parsons dropping conspiracy theories? What if the old ones are the wardens? I don't think we have any evidence to suggest that. we saw where the wardens came from, so I don't think so. I think the old ones are.
There's also this brings to mind a colloquialism. I don't even know it's colloquialism. I know it's something I heard from one of the generals, which is there's a thin line between terrorist and freedom fighter.
100%. Oh yeah, no, and sometimes literally it's the same person, is just who you ask.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
that's, I think, that it speaks to Jeff's ability to tell stories where, like, that's a real thing. That's a real thing.
But here's the thing that James is thinking about for sure, and it's kind of eating away at the back of James's mind, and Morgan, the storyteller, is also thinking about it, because I don't know, which is like the big unanswered question that we barely got to is 300 years ago when they decided to make everybody forget. They did that because to protect everyone from something huge and bad.
Yep.
They created the wardens to protect the world from something huge and bad. Now and it was not Calcutta Theed, and it was not the Drow. They were made. What they are angry about is that being made to forget. So what was it?
That's where my brain has been like. Obsessing over is like it seems to be that the people who made everyone forget aren't they don't make decisions irrationally or quickly. They were making decisions based on knowledge, based on things that they had learned themselves. So what was it that they learned that scared them so bad that they're like, we need everyone to forget anything they've ever learned.
100%.
And that will save the world.
Yep.
That, or it's just really, really, really dumb individuals who decided to do a horrible, stupid thing.
Right.
And I don't think that's the case. So there's a big bad we haven't even seen yet.
And you know who knows it?
Jeff Kanata.
Well, not just, but you know who really knows it? Queen of the Shazengao, who's still alive.
Yep.
Oh. Look, we got a lot to do in Turles, but we also gotta keep moving. Like that's the other thing too is as we've said, like we could have stayed in Olsvatch for months. We could have stayed in Thorn. We could stay in Thorn for months. There's such complex, interesting stuff there. But at the end of the day, what the heroes of Bingle are best suited to do is face and figure out and hopefully solve or help this story. I hope. And this will lead me back to the Diptheed conversation. There is a world where Calcutta Theed can be redeemed.
Yes, I hope so too.
Because I see, and Cypher logic again. I think the heroes of Bingle agree with some of the Ashen Mage's logic about bringing knowledge back to the world. 100%, 100%. You're like, yes, I agree. The kernel at the very center of what you're doing is right. But then you've corrupted it and turned it into this terrible thing where you're destroying Bingle and killing hundreds of people. How does that equal that? You know?
Right. How does that benefit the whole? Yeah.
Right. That is what I will always point to, by the way, when people are like, I love the Ashen Mage. I was like, really? You love killing all those gnomes from Bingle? Really?
Right.
Just don't forget she did that. She did that.
Again,
dead bodies of Bingle people shoved into tubes and used as fuel. You love that, do you?
And I think this is where it comes into, like, you see the heroes a lot more than you see the villains. And so sometimes I think it can be easier to be like, well, the villains, the heroes are being so bad right now. And it's like, but when you compare to what's going on, what we're doing makes sense. I don't know. Are you guys like thinking about what's happening in the things that we don't see? Like,
right.
What happened to Oldswatch? Like, what's happened to Bingle? What's happened to like everything?
Right. Not saying it's the only evil in the world at all, but it's just sort of like it is that thing of keep your perspective. And it's easy to forget. And I also think, I wonder, this is a broad pop culture discussion, but I wonder if in this era of anti-heroes and loving villains and everything like that, there's some times where it's like, really? You love that person? Yikes. Yikes. I agree. Yikes. But however, I agree the Ashen Mage is an excellent character and very fascinating.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's maybe the words that aren't being used. Like, if you like that person and they're choices, that's a different than saying then I like this story's villain and their choices.
Correct.
Like, that's a bit of a different thing.
I love Thanos. He's the best. It's like,
right. Love, like for me, love Venom. Love Venom as
Sure.
an anti-hero.
For
love
sure.
Venom as a character and
Right.
his choices.
Right.
Would not support Venom in real life.
No, God, no.
Yeah. Oh my God, no.
Oh, no.
Right.
Problematic.
Very much so.
Problematic.
And that's,
phase.
I think, that sometimes gets lost in, because we have so much of our world isn't reality. So much of our world is like the all simulations that we're building for ourselves and
Right.
escapisms.
Right.
Discord, YouTube, Google, these are all escapisms
Right.
to help us deal with the reality around us.
Right.
And so absolutely, for me, sometimes I get with Fail Waffle about her favorite, because for me, it's like, yes, I think Whitebeard is a great pirate. That being said, he's a pirate. And in real life, I don't know if you've read any stories about what pirates did.
Not great.
Not great. Now, granted, not what the British Navy did, also not that great. But this is the stories that we're trying to tell. It's like
100%.
there's danger in all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
I will. Okay. I wanna dive back briefly into. So, this is all to say. And who is it? Mitch 32579. Love the villain, not the villainy. Agreed.
Yes.
This is all to say that I think, man, spoiler alert. I actually, the more I think about it, I kind of like the idea. James doesn't really know about this yet. I kind of like the idea of sending Diptheed back to the Ashen Mage, because I think that they are a wronged people. And it is going and keeping Diptheed from them. I don't know what else to do with her. I don't. And so just leaving her in the Underfury will feel like cruelty. And, I think that's, when I'm looking at, and we have so much else to do that I'm just like, if we leave Diptheed, it's going to get forgotten in the tidal wave of other things that are going to happen. And so it will be a risk. It will be an absolute risk to send her to the Ashen Mage and send her to the Drow. But I don't think the risk is worth 100% turning her against us, which we would do if we keep her.
Which would happen. Absolutely.
100%.
And here's the thing. With this situation that we're in, risk is going to be a necessity.
Of course, there's some risk.
To risk things.
I would also argue a little bit, because I see some people pushing back on this already. How do you send her to the AM? Craft and Crunch. Fahima, one of the teleportation circles that Fahima knows is the Ashen Mage's office. We could go to the Ashen Mage's office anytime we want.
Anytime we wanted to.
We just don't want to do it. No, but
we're just not ready to do it.
Definitely not. But so I would also argue that I don't know how much of a risk that it is. What does Diptheed know that the Ashen Mage doesn't already? Really?
I don't necessarily know it's about Ashen Mage learning new things so much as it's a person who is spiraling and very, very
treacherous idol. No, Ashen Mage already knows about the Fifth Warden. But I'm sorry, continue, Ron.
I think Diptheed is a spiraling individual who's very impressionable, because they're dealing with something that they have that's a new feeling. I equate it to, like, I think in a way she's kind of going through a puberty stage in a way, or like that's the closest thing as a human being that I can relate it to, is like you're going through major changes, right? Hormonal, physical, it's all a major change of a human being. We even acknowledge that, like, the hormone, that kind of stuff is, okay, well, they're teenagers, so we need to take what they're saying with a grain of salt because they have hormones and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's what's going on with Diptheed is, yes, you're right. Sending her there might benefit us greatly, and the risk appears to be little, but the risk is greatest for her because she's impressionable.
Totally. But also I see no other. Yeah. It is a risk. It's a risk no matter what. But you just, she thinks she's doomed. She sees no other hope. And so if we choose to see the drow as a wronged people who are just doing this out of anger and doing this out of, I mean, it's not even, we don't even really how much it's all of them doing it, more than just Calcutta Theed, more than just the Ashen Mage. And so it's kind of, I think we have a little more to gain by keeping Diptheed on our side. And I don't know how big of a risk it is to turn Diptheed against us. What's she gonna do? I don't know.
Well, she knows a lot of what Torvald knows, right?
Maybe.
That we don't know. So there are things that she knows that maybe we don't know, that then the Ashen Mage might know that we don't know.
She's not telling it to us. I mean, yeah.
She's currently not. Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. She's currently not telling it to us, but
Yeah.
sending her to the Ashen Mage is an opportunity for the Ashen Mage to learn things that we don't even know.
I don't know
about
that's
Torvald in that experience.
I don't know that that's there. Yeah, I know. That's interesting. That is interesting, and it is a risk for sure. But it's
not. That is not me saying that I don't support this idea.
No, but you're pointing out the risk.
It's just pointing out risk. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's for sure. I see that it's a danger, but also I think it's continuing to view it. It would feel like a move of eventually bringing all of us together again, and by all of us I mean everybody. I mean all of Ein, and that's what we got to do, isn't it?
Well, and it's also a little bit of a struggle because she's obviously struggling with her identity, and
leaving her alone and isolated in the Underfury is not going to help that.
Not going to help that identity. No, not at all. And just to the argument against the risk is, well, but sending her someplace where she can at least be identified with someone who she knows or is part of her identity. Might be beneficial for her. It's such a hard. At the end of the day, you can't stop her if she wants to go.
Right.
If she ends up wanting to go on her own, she's going to go, and you can't stop her. So there's some thought in that as well. It's like thinking, well, if she really wants to go, that's truly what she wants.
Yeah.
You can't stop her from doing it.
Yeah.
So might as well try to help her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Jessica says, well, we can stop her, we just don't give her the portal. But she could still seek it out on her own or go and try to find other ways to contact her.
Dig
like if we don't have her on
crust.
Yeah, like we don't have her on a leash, you're not going to be able to watch her 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And if that's what she really wants, just like a teenager, she's going to go and try to do what she wants. So rather than telling them, no, don't do that, say, here's the dangers of doing that.
Yeah, I think, it's, and she literally can't leave. I mean, she got 2 steps outside of the Underfury before she was ripped back down again. And that's what we know where that is. So whatever it is, this curse for the Sky Children, man, it's so interesting. I think we have so much to learn about the Wardens. Oh, by the way, I don't know about anything about this, but did you notice, confirm if I'm wrong, Jeff, in his recap the other day, brought back the name of the other Sky Child that we never met at the other Lodestar, whose name I'm blanking on right now. Orintha or something like that. And Jeff dropped that name in the recap 2 episodes ago. Garumtha. Thank you, Gorbin Plate. Garumtha. And I remember hearing Jeff say it and went, whoa, I haven't thought of that name since episode 3 or 4.
Now that you say it, I remembered it because the only reason I remembered it is Harumtha is what I keep thinking in my head.
Harumtha. And it was one of those, and it's a little bit my puzzle solver storyteller brain going, why'd Jeff say that name? We haven't heard that name in forever. What does that mean? And assumed to be killed. Never saw it.
Or transitioned to a Theed, as Gorbin Plate said.
When he fell to Earth, assumingly. But we never found him. We were told Garumtha is up there. Save him if you can. And never saw
him, right?
No,
Do we
never
ever
saw
see him?
hide nor hair of him. Nope.
Oh yeah.
And
'Cause
so
then I would say like you could dream him, but you don't know him. So
nope, never saw him. Yeah, no. And so
also the first male Sky Child that
correct.
we encountered.
Correct. And so what's the deal with Garumtha? That's all I'm here to say. If you want to add something else to the red conspiracy theory board, what's the deal with Garumtha?
I do want to mention something that Expendable Crewman just said, is the fact that Jeff writes a new relevant recap for every episode blows my mind. It's so much extra work. You're absolutely right. It is a lot of extra work.
Yep.
So every one of you, thank Jeff as much as you possibly can for those, because it's also why we have new watchers.
Yes.
In my personal opinion, it's the
Yes.
absolute reason why we have new watchers is
Yeah.
because he literally catches you up as much as he can
Yeah.
at the beginning of every episode.
Yeah.
It's also why I've started to be completely silenced during those times and started paying attention myself, because it's
Yes.
like he's dropping little knowledge bits that if you're paying attention, you might not have heard before, and you need to, like Garumtha, for example.
This is a thing with TV as well, where if you watch it like the previously on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know, if you watch those little previously ons, there you will occasionally get clues about what's coming. They're like, wait, why did you show me that clip from 2 seasons ago? You know, or whatever. And so my mind that thinks about that stuff heard Garumtha and was like, why did Jeff say Garumtha? I haven't thought of that name in 2 years, you know, or whatever.
Right. And it might even benefit us to go back and rewatch the Turles parts that we were at.
Yeah.
Just so that we are fresh on
so true.
and the audience are fresh
I know.
on what's going on.
Completely.
Because there's so much, and
there's so much, and
so much,
and it's also trying to play the characters truthfully. Correct. Because
previous choices,
and also going back to our timeline of like how long ago was it really that the characters were in Turles? 3 months, something like that, and it's been like 2 years for us, the players, and it's been a minute, and so you're like, well, I would remember that was only like a couple weeks ago, you know, or something like that.
Right. Your character would absolutely remember it because it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Ron doesn't, because I've got so many other things that I have to remember with my own head that I don't store that information here.
Yeah.
I have a video.
And sometimes it takes 3 sessions to get through a day, you know, and so it's like,
Also, I highly recommend, if you haven't, but the rest of you out there, if you have not seen the work that the Raven Queen has been doing on the wiki, you should check the wiki out because it has been so helpful.
Amazing. I totally agree with that. Unknown Axiom says it's been 61 days in game total. Is that right? It's that few? I thought it was even more than that, but you're probably right. 61. Wow.
Well, has it been 61? Because we did travel in time, and what is time?
Right, that's a good point. It's a good point.
A flat circle, according to you.
Right, 100%. And Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Okay. So, but yes, it's been. It's time to wrap up. This was so much fun, though. I love.
It's always fun to have a long conversation about this stuff.
I know. I love chatting with you, and I love chatting with chat. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's see. Episode 92 is coming Wednesday. We got more fun stuff on the way. The merch store is getting very close to live. Be on the lookout for that very soon. We have some more cast secrets dropping this week. I believe Miss Katie Michaels is dropping a cast secret on the Patreon. We've got, I'm sure Jeff Kanata's got some more stat sheets coming. Yeah, we got other things we're working on, folks, that we'll tell you about real soon. Be excited. But yes, anything else I'm forgetting, Ronald Ogden?
Thank you. As always, this show would not be made possible. The Dungeon Run would not be made possible without all the support from all of you out there on Twitch, as well as our wonderful and lovely supporters on Patreon.
Yes.
If you like this kind of programming and want to see even more of it, then I highly recommend, and not just this program, but other programs, then I highly recommend that you stop over at patreon.com/the Dungeon Run and check out all of the perks that you might be able to get, and maybe, just maybe, thinking about joining us.
Indeed. All right. We love you guys. Have an amazing week. We'll see you Wednesday night or Friday for the VOD folks. But yeah, until then, humankind. Be both.
Be both.
You're doing great, Girk.